Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Let Me Know If You Need a Podcast. So, when someone we love is sick, or heaven forbid, nearing the end of life, our hearts tell us to show up. We want to cook, we want to clean, we want to drive, we want to be there to hold their hand. But when we think about those doing the caregiving day in and day out, that love, that showing up every day comes with a lot of exhaustion, isolation, and an unspoken question: who is caring for the caregiver? Today's guest is amazing, Niki Staab. She has built her life around answering just that question. She's an end of life doula, hospice volunteer, and executive director and founder of Rings of Care KC, a nonprofit that's changing the way we think about support, not just for the patients, but for those of us holding up everything behind the scenes. In this episode, we'll talk about her Rings of Care model that helps families organize support proactively, and also regain control and restore dignity. So this makes the act of giving and receiving support even better. Stay tuned, more to come. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Let Me Know If You Need a Podcast. Today, Kristen and I are sitting down with Niki Staab, and she's an end-of-life doula. She's been a longtime hospice volunteer, and she's also the executive director and founder of Rings of Care, which is located just south of Kansas City. And she just does a lot of wonderful work with individuals that are caregivers. So on this podcast, we talk a lot about how people can show up during difficult times. And I just feel like Niki is kind of the embodiment. And so we're really excited to jump in and hear. Let's start with, how did you get here? Like, how did you end up in this space?
So it really, the space I ended up in as a death doula started out when my grandma was passing. So I was very close to both my grandmothers. They helped to raise me. They're a very integral part of my life. And I'm actually here in Lee Summit because of my other grandmother. I'm helping to care for her. So we were she'd been in this facility. I'd been in this facility, since my grandpa had Alzheimer's. And so I was like 12. So it was not, uncommon for me to be there. It was not uncommon for me to be with my grandmother there. But when she was dying, it was like this fear and this anxiety just came over me. And I was sitting in the corner, just sitting there.
Yeah, as we
um,
all do, because we don't really know what to
right.
do
Like,
in these
okay.
situations. Yeah.
And the hospice, I have wonderful things to say about hospice. This one wasn't great. They didn't really have a lot of support. They didn't really have a lot of help. It was more just, leaving us to us. And I felt like I was stepping on their toes. I felt like I was going to, do something wrong, hurt her somehow. And so what I did was I just kind of sat there. And then I feel like my grandfather, sorry, cat. My grandfather kind of bopped me on the head. He passed away a long time ago, and I just felt like him say, what would your grandmother be doing if you were in that bed and she was sitting in that chair? And I was like, well, she wouldn't be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So I got up. I had my youngest at the time, who's 9 months old, Alex, and I said, Grandma, I would really like for you to hold Alex before you pass. And she was unresponsive. But I went ahead and laid Alex in the crook of her arm, and her arm came up and around and held him. And I thought, oh my gosh, wow,
Yeah.
oh, this is something. So and it just hit me like I could stay there in that corner, and I could, have let this precious sacred time pass without having these moments and creating these memories that, as you can see, they're so strong still.
Mm-hmm.
um, so the next day I told her I was going to take her to get her a manicure, get her favorite colors of nail polish from her house. And so I went ahead and did that. And I asked her if she would be okay with, me doing that. There's still no response. But when I sat down and put the stuff out, her arm came out, and her hand came
That's
to me, which was just absolutely beautiful. And so I was able to do for her I was able
Mm-hmm.
to continue showing her my love, just as she had shown me hers. And so it was this really beautiful thing. And so that's really what got me started. I was like, I need to work in this field. I want to be able to help families where I was, show them how to advocate, show them how to ask, if you do, what do I do, or have these conversations, maybe if I'd had conversations about death,
Mm-hmm.
which is such a normal part of life, that I wouldn't have been so anxious and so scared.
Yeah.
So that's how I became a death doula.
Do you remember what her favorite nail polish color was by chance?
It was a bright red. I can't remember the name of
Classic.
it, but
Love it.
yes, it was a bright red, and a bold red. And that's who she was. And the thing too with that is when my the time was kind of coming, and my aunt and uncle were there with my dad, and they all kept saying, it's okay, mom, you can go, all this stuff. And I kind of started laughing because I'd had these realizations, and they looked at me like, what are you laughing about? And I was like, do you not remember who this woman was? She's
Mm-hmm.
probably in there flipping you off, saying, I will go when I damn and well
Yes.
ready.
Don't tell me what
You
to
can,
do.
right, you're good.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
am I.
Yep. She sounds
And that's
amazing.
she was, yes, yes. And so that's what she did. She waited until we all left, and she passed on her own, and she did, which was beautiful. It was another realization for me, is that we die the way that we live. we
Yes.
we are we are ourselves up until our last moment of breath.
Yeah.
And which is beautiful, because there's people who say, this parent or this grandparent had Alzheimer's, but on those last few moments, that last hour, that last couple hours, they knew our names, they knew who we were, they came back for that small amount of time, which is absolutely beautiful. And so yeah, that's kind of how I became a death doula. And then how I started Rings of Care is I just continued, with my clients, seeing over and over again my caregivers not getting the support that they needed, not getting the help that they needed. By the time I got there, which we come in at, we do even end of life planning, so we can come in at 18, but people don't really call hospice, or anybody in the death community, until about 3 days before they die.
Sure. Oh, is that right?
Um, yeah, so
Hmm.
so you really should call as soon as you, because they're there to support you. They're not
Yeah.
going to hasten death. They're not going to,
And do you
it's
think they
not.
don't call sooner because they're not ready or because they don't know?
I think a lot of it is both. I think there's
Okay.
fear. I think that they're not ready. I think, some that means that it's inevitable,
Yeah.
when you make
Yep.
that call.
You've made
Um,
made a decision there.
right. But
Yep.
also, even with palliative care, they're there to support you, your pain and whatever that looks like. And so that's another way that to get support. But they're huge, and that's for caregivers. That's absolutely massive to have any, as you know, any kind of support coming in, that is, that can either do, respite, whether that's bathing, whether that's changing, whatever that is going to take that off your plate. That's huge. So that's
I have a few things to say. First of all, you never have to apologize for an animal interrupting the podcast because Kristen
God,
has really introduced us to what it means to have a dog that wants to be a star.
my
And
dog is the silent partner. Yeah, not so silent.
Kristen's dog wants to be featured in every episode, so our listeners have to suffer. So if your cat needs to make an appearance and walk past the screen, it doesn't matter.
Let it
okay.
be.
Yes,
Okay, I
but
appreciate it.
yes, I think we talked about this before, but I was with my mom when we had her in our home when she passed, and it was also very fast. But what I find really fascinating is I had been in the medical space for 18 years when she passed, and I still was like unsure of how to handle this situation, right? Like I didn't know, very similar to what you described when you're kind of sitting in the corner, like, should I be over there? Does she know I'm here? And when we brought we had a great hospice nurse, and she was very like, you can do whatever you want. If you want to
Mm-hmm.
cook her a meal and put it by her bed, knowing she won't eat it, but she might smell it. Like she just gave us all these ideas that made me feel so comfortable. And so what I find fascinating about your story is that you kind of came to that on your own. So it's like, I love hearing a story about someone that has really, like, it really seems like it it came into your soul and like integrated into who you were going to be.
Divine intervention
Yeah.
It
or
was.
something. That's
Absolutely
fascinating.
was.
So, do you find a lot of people kind of need, I think a lot of people need encouragement in that time just because we're not very open as a society to be about what it means, and or do you find some people are just naturals?
Oh, both. And that's totally okay. It's like with anything else. Sometimes at a birth, you have somebody there, and you're like, wow, you really stepped in, and were amazing for this pregnancy or for that birth, and or a wedding even. And that's the thing that we try to talk about, is that we talk about these things. We talk about our birth story. We talk about our weddings. We make it a big deal. We plan every little detail.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to our deaths, we don't talk about it. And we just are like, well, whatever happens, happens. And that's where kind of we come in and we're like, let's do some visual planning. What do you want there? What kind of smells, as you were saying? What kind of touch would you want? Who would you want there? Who wouldn't you want there? Because that's a big one. All kinds of, so let's look at every piece. I had a client who, and this is where Rings of Care came in. So didn't have any family, but she had friends, and they had strong friends, and so I was able to come in as her doula and organize those friends, and organize them so that it didn't all it felt there was one main caregiver, but that we were giving her the time off that she needed.
Mm-hmm.
This client of mine was doing VSED, which is voluntarily stop eating and drinking, so there's no food in the house. So we wanted to make sure that the caregiver was able to leave to go eat three
Sure.
times a
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, that's
It's
important.
very important to keep up her health, right?
Yes.
And we laugh about it, but so many caregivers will just not eat with their person. They're like, well, I
Yeah.
don't want to eat around them. And so, or they'll take it outside in the dead of winter, or they'll,
Mm-hmm.
eating in the garage. And so making sure that our caregivers are getting what they need. And so Rings of Care really came about. There's a theory called the ring theory, with tree rings, and in the middle is that person that we're focusing on, who they don't have to be dying. They could be going through a surgery, they could have just given birth, they could be, have a cold, um you know and then that first ring around there is the person who's caregiving the most, who is bringing them the chicken noodle soup, who is bringing them home from the hospital, whatever that looks like. And they are giving all of that care to that person in the middle. So that means that they're taking that from themselves. They're
Yep.
dipping into their bucket. They're giving everything that they've got. And so as we come out, and that's usually the spouse, a child, a parent, something like that. And so as that next ring, we kind of think about where we are in the rings. Do we maybe my sister is taking care of her child. And so I'm kind of in that next ring. Like, how can I care for my sister while she's caring for her child?
Mm-hmm.
Right. What can I bring her the chicken soup so she doesn't have to leave? Can I bring her a coffee because she was up all night with whatever she was dealing with? And so as we kind of pull out of those rings, and we continue to support that person that's next in those rings, then we know that our cups are being filled, our buckets are being filled, and so that person in the middle is getting the absolute best care that they possibly could, even though we're not directly caring for them.
Yeah.
And
I
that is
love it.
where that comes from. It
Yeah.
is.
It's
And
beautiful.
it's something that we've done for communities for millennia. This is not a new concept.
Right.
What a new concept is that that we pull, that
Yeah.
we're supposed to be doing this on our own and pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps, and
Yes.
getting through this with
Mm-hmm.
a tough look on our face. Like that, yes, that's great for some people, and some people, maybe don't want that care, or they fear that care, or whatever. But we as a community, we are meant to support each other. We're meant to help each other. We're meant to be, and we want to. That's the thing that I tell people. They're like, well, I just don't know if anybody will help. And then we talk to those people, and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
I've been
Been
wanting to help. I just didn't know how
waiting.
to ask. I
Where
didn't
can
know
I
how
be?
to.
Yeah.
Right. So if we can just be open to saying, number one, I need some help. And even if we could get that ahead of crisis, That would be wonderful. And really that's one of the things that we do with Rings of Care is we do workshops where we teach people how to build their village, to
I
really
love
think
that.
about that and to really be a part of that. So I was in Indiana for 10 years with my family, and we didn't have, any friends or family there.
Hmm.
But we had these wonderful neighbors, and we moved there. I was about 4 months pregnant, and so I was, there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot going on. Nothing
Yeah.
big, right? I had a 2.5 year old,
Hmm.
and what we found was our neighbors. We were able to start like making dinners for each other. So we had this neighbor who would make a big dinner 2-3 times a week, and then I would do the same, and then we would share with each other.
Yeah. So you just have one day that you're not having to think about it and you're making dinner anyway. You might as well just make another.
Exactly, make it double. And so we started doing that with our cul-de-sac. Different neighbors were wanting to step in and do that. It's just absolutely beautiful, that community. And when you're already doing those kind of things and something happens, you're like, I know who to count on. I know who to ask. Maybe it's your book club. I had a client who she was dying, and she was afraid to ask her tell her friends, to come and see her. She was afraid for them to see her in that way. And when that book club showed up and said, we're here for you. We're not here for the state of you. We're not here because you got a coffee on the, we're here for you. Like that, it's so beautiful. And it's those moments that we carry with us for the rest of our lives. And we have to make those moments. We can't just, sometimes they happen. But really it's about making that, like, what does this person need, really thinking it through, trying to figure it out so that we can be there and be a part of that. And we're also doing, because of kind of how society is, we're trying to have those conversations ahead of time, like I said, but also having them afterwards. So
Yeah.
how to, we have workshops on how to build your village after crisis, because that's something
Amazing.
that we try to do too. Just really trying to show people, you know give them that support, saying, it's okay to reach out for help. It's okay to say, I think I need something. And then to really speak on what you do, to say, this is how I need help.
Yeah. How to be specific about it.
So yeah, we have a calendar where we put, we ask, let people, they can put, it's a free calendar on our website at ringsofcare.org, and they can get on the calendar, create a calendar. The caregiver can do it. um, a support of the caregiver can do it. And they can put whatever tasks that they are wanting support on. So that could be anything from laundry, dog walking, plumbing support, like
Yeah.
whatever
Whatever can
tasks,
be done can be
anything.
outsourced, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what that does, it allows the caregiver to, sometimes the caregiver doesn't want to outsource different things. They want to hold that helps, gives them a little control. It helps, gives them that sense of what they're doing, of purpose. But all the other things they can put up there. They can decide what they put up there, what they don't put up there, and then they can decide who is in their rings of care, who is in, do I reach out to my book club? Can I reach out to my um, my coworkers? Can I reach out to my, if I, if it's a husband caring for a wife, can he, does he feel comfortable reaching out to her coworkers? Different things like that. And so we kind of build this, and what you can do is you get a specific code to get into this, to your calendar. So I wouldn't say fully HIPAA compliant, but it is,
Yeah.
if you,
Private
only
enough that,
people, right,
yeah.
can. So we've even had people going through domestic abuse situations, where they were able to, say, this is the help that I need on this calendar. They send it out to those who are supporting them. And so only those people have access to that calendar of what's needed. And what we've seen with this is that volunteers are able to pick and choose what tasks they feel comfortable doing. So maybe they don't feel comfortable helping to change a wound or go to a doctor's appointment, but they do feel comfortable getting a prescription or taking little Sarah to soccer
Doing the
practice.
lawn care or something. Yes.
Exactly, whatever that looks like. And so when you're picking and choosing when you can help and how you can help as a volunteer, that makes you want to continue volunteering
Yeah.
for a longer period of time. So what we're seeing is that this isn't just for, a 2 to 6 weeks after a surgery, which we've done, and that's wonderful. It works for that beautifully, but also long term. So we have families who have kids that are medically fragile. They can get on there, and this is let people know that this is what their continued needs are. Um, we have people who have adult children who are differently abled, and they're very worried about what is going to happen and who is going to take that care if something happened to them. And so they're able to put things on there and get other people involved, get community involved, to really build that support around their loved one. So
Yeah. You know what I think is so cool about what you do is the proactive, because I don't think I've heard any other we've talked to a lot of people in this space, people that are supporting a loved one that, we kind of have our initial focus was kind of cancer just because of my association. And what you hear over and over and over again is like life stopped in its tracks and I didn't know what to do. Like I didn't know who to reach out to. We all have family, but every other family is busy. And so what I think is so cool is that you're kind of like opening the door to say you can create these networks beforehand with just fun events, right? Like let's all feed the kids one night together, or let's all
hmm
just make dinner and, figure out what everybody's schedules are, or see if we can get a carpool going in our neighborhood before the crisis comes. And then when the
right.
crisis comes, it really lessens that blow. So I think that's amazing. And I don't know, did you just come up with that, or was it like,
No,
how did
so
that come to
there's
be?
there's a great book that has a very similar concept. It's called Share the Care. It's actually about a cancer survivor, who her friends came together and said, they she doesn't have anybody to care for her.
Yeah.
How can we care for her? And so
Yeah.
we've
Kristen,
taken
write
that.
that down. Did you write
It
that
is
down?
amazing.
Okay.
Yes, yes. They even were able to plan her daughter's wedding for her before she passed. I mean, it's an absolutely beautiful, beautiful book. And I just and they do things. Share the Care does some things where you can help in different ways, and they help. But there wasn't something that was like bringing that to modern day. So that's why we're like we need a calendar. We need how can we and we also, like you said, we want to change the conversation. We want to change the conversation that society is having. We want to say, this is okay. This is more than okay. This is how it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be isolation and individualization. And I think that we're seeing that, after COVID as well. Like, before COVID, we were kind of doing that anyway. And then when we were forced to isolate, we are just seeing the effects that had on people who were by themselves, on families. I mean, just it was devastating on so many levels.
Let Me Know If You Need a Podcast has partnered with Sleep Again Pillows, created by a breast cancer survivor who went through a double mastectomy. And out of that experience came a pillow system that makes it easier to get real rest after surgery, something essential for anyone in recovery. As part of our partnership, listeners get 15% off the pillow system or bundle. Just visit sleepagainpillows.com and use the code GetWell15 at checkout.
I think it's so fascinating also now the amount of data we're getting on how stressful it is to be so independent. And I don't think it's really worded that way in the literature, like when you read some of the medical, but the tie into like cortisol and long-term health and how damaging it can be to not, have connection during those very stressful times, or to try to do everything yourself, even if it's like a 6-month period. They're finding that can significantly alter your ability to, let's say, fight acute infection even. And so the caregiver is often coming in as like the secondary patient,
Hmm.
or they're not coming
Absolutely.
in is the even worse part. They're
Yeah.
suffering and they're asking no one. So I think it's just so great.
There's many times that we've heard, of caregivers who have passed before those that they're caring for, and there's times I've seen personally the caregiver almost not able to go to the funeral because they are so sick, and because once that person died, it was like they were able to sleep, they were able to, and it
Like
just
shut
like their
down.
body just shut down, yeah, and said,
Yeah.
we can't do anymore. And so we really want to not, um, have that continue to happen. But also, even if you're a single parent,
Hmm.
and you're doing so much on your own. Why don't you feel like you can say, hey, this is some help that I could really use as a single parent. I could use this, whether it's taking, the kids to practice or to school or pick up or whatever. And even, with what's going on in the world right now, like for I'm seeing communities really bring together and have like potlucks for their neighbors, and then ask for donations. And then I was talking with a woman, she was like, well, we're having this potluck, we're asking for donations, but I don't want to say, hey, take what you need, because then people are going to feel like, well, I don't want people to see me take. So what she decided is, I'm going to say, make sure that you are taking for somebody you have in mind. If
So
you
they
have
can feel a
somebody
little more
in mind,
comfortable. That's
so
a good
so
idea.
they can feel, and they can say, oh, I'm taking this for my elderly neighbor, Evelyn, or whatever,
Yeah.
even if they're using it for themselves. And that's
Yeah.
fine. That's fine.
Yeah. What
Absolutely.
I love about that too, with the single parent analogy, and it could be a single caregiver, it could be anybody, but
Right.
what I think is really great if you have that support system that's in your community is those individuals that are the caregiver can also sometimes show up for others. And then that also fills your cup, right? Because then you feel less like you're like, take, 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 take. You have that outlet to also be like, okay, now I'm going to reciprocate and this is what I can do. And I can bring something, to the table. So I think that's wonderful. I will allow Kristen to ask a question because I'm dominating the floor.
Well, one thing that you brought up that I think is really like an overlooked part of these experiences is like what happens after the death, and how like people think, okay, well, it's over if they're not in the thick of it. And I love that the model you put together looks beyond that. It's like there is think life doesn't stop, grief doesn't stop, hardships don't stop once, you know, your cancer's gone, or your loved one passes. And I love that you put that together. Was that something that was immediately built into the system, or was it more of like, oh, we learned this as we went along with circles of care? What was that, like, how did you come up with all of that? That's what I meant, rings of care, excuse me.
That's okay. Yeah, it kind of comes together. So it's, I think when you're doing something like this, in a space where, right, so I have not had an issue or crisis where I've been in need of this. So what are we trying to do? Who do we need to be talking to? I'm not the expert in this, right? So we need to be talking to the caregivers. We need to be talking to, that's what we're doing. We need to be seeing, how, and we've had them try out the calendar. How is this helping? How is this, what are some things that you need? One, we heard somebody say, it would be nice to have like a message board under there so that we can say, I took grandma to the doctor. This is what the doctor said. And so you're not texting, everybody in your family. You're not having to keep that, so there's this easy way for one stop shop where they can say, okay, grandma had this appointment on Monday. Oh, there's a little update on it. Perfect. Now I know what's going on. I know what to look for or to ask her about. So really just keeping that open mind, and realizing that we can grow together, so that we can grow how things change. And maybe somebody goes through something that we had, this is something new, and we're like, okay, well, maybe we
Mhm.
could change this way and figure this out. So really, keeping an open mind, I think that's the most important thing. And also collaboration. That's something in the nonprofit field that, it's hard to see when nonprofits are not collaborating,
Yeah.
when
Kind of
they
like
feel
it's
like
really like a oxymoron there. Or is that the right term?
Right.
It's very
That's
counterintuitive
it's
to what the mission is.
and I understand it. There's this feeling of scarcity,
Mhm.
with money, with volunteers, with whatever. But when you move forward without that fear of scarcity, it comes to you. It comes to, you can open up and have creative collaborations. I'm always thinking, like, I try to picture, like a web. How can we, branch out to help here? How can they help us? Like, and just kind of look at this every time I'm meeting somebody or I'm in that, a for profit or nonprofit. Like, okay, let's figure this out. Like, how can we help each other? Because that's what we need right now in our society.
Mhm.
We need,
Yeah.
we need to make sure that we're supporting each other and helping each other, and figuring out, it doesn't have to be nonprofit, like for profit, nonprofit, like let's work together. How can we make this happen?
If anything, you're just bringing more people in. You're not,
Right.
it's not a
Right.
scarcity. It's almost more just like a invitation for everyone
Right.
else
Well,
to say, like, this is where I can come in.
and it's never going to go away. So there is no
Right.
Yeah.
scarcity.
Right.
It's just
Yes.
going to
It
grow.
is
So
only going to grow.
yeah, we need to reshift the mindset there.
We really do. And the thing too is that, when we do come together, we build something that wasn't there before. We build something beautiful that, may not have ever come out of it. I like the thought of what could come from future collaborations. To me, is just exciting. It's
Yeah.
exciting to think of that. So let's, figure that out, and let's look at that, and really, yeah, come together, and
Do
Yeah.
something great.
Speaking
right.
of future collaborations, what's on the horizon for Rings of Care?
So we're really excited. We have a community, healthcare worker program, that we are really excited about. So one of the things, we were kind of trying to think of, how can we, our caregivers kept saying this calendar's great, whatever, this is a great start, but, we kept running into people that didn't have caregivers, that didn't have anybody. And, so what do we do there? Right. And we do have some people who are like, I'd really love to volunteer, but that can get a little dicey sometimes. And so, we came together, and realized that there is this group called community health workers. So community health workers do everything from navigating the healthcare system, helping you do Medicaid applications, insurance, take you to doctor's appointments, help with your medication. Um, and we keep, like, light bulbs keep coming up. This
Mm-hmm.
is everything our caregivers need. This is the
Mm-hmm.
support they need, and they come from the communities. So that's what's so beautiful, is they come from the communities that they help. So really, what we found is that we're working with a professor at, Metropolitan Community College, and she has been teaching community healthcare workers, for years now, and so they need 60 hours of in-service training to graduate. So we are building an in-service to teach them how to support caregivers, and how to, and also decide what kind of families maybe do I want to try. Do I want to work with children? Do I want to work with the elderly? Do I want to work with somebody who just got back from surgery? And so it gives them a choice of what kind of families that they want to see what they work with, so that when they do start, looking for employment, then they can kind of say, you know what, I really enjoyed working with, um, these children. I That's what
Yeah.
I want to stick to. And so, they're not able to get paid for those 60 hours of service. So we give them gas cards, we give them, grocery cards to support them, because a lot of these, people are, you know, doing this,
Working, going to school,
working,
all the
going to
things.
school,
Yeah.
all right,
Mm-hmm.
right, all of the things. And then they are able to come in, and, what we're hoping, we're still kind of building the program, but that they're able to come in, do these in services, learn how to go into the home, learn how to look for safety issues, learn how to be safe themselves, learn how to, all of these things, that how to help, and then, go into the home and support the caregivers hands on, with a mentor, with a CHW supervisor, which, we have a couple of trained community health worker supervisors who will go in and help them until they feel comfortable, until they're comfortable kind of going on their own. And then they always kind of have that feedback. We're getting that constant feedback from the caregivers. We're getting that constant feedback from the community health worker, to make sure that everything is kind of coming together, that they're, and so our caregivers are getting that hands-on support they need. Our community health workers are getting the, hands-on training that they need, and we're
Yeah.
all coming together. And what we found is that, with the grocery and the gas cards and the, supervisors and everything, that we are able to, get help for our caregivers for about $3.67 an
Amazing.
hour,
Yeah.
which is unheard of.
Yes.
And what we're hoping too is once they graduate, the community health workers, that they will come back and mentor,
Be the
and that
mentors. Yes.
we can hire them, through hopefully a grant program, that they can mentor and support the continuation and building of these programs around the area.
That is fantastic. I need to talk to you more about that offline, because we have, in January, we have 48 physician assistant students starting at the university where I'm a program director, professor, whatever you want to call me. And that might be a really nice kind of tie in there with if we can figure out a healthcare worker situation for them to work with. But I wanted to ask you, because I think you told me before, you are not local. Your platform is national,
Mm-hmm.
correct? People can get on anywhere. Anybody can use the calendar.
Yep, absolutely. It is free. We do have a little, donation ask if you're able to, but if you're not, that's okay too. We don't want to put barriers, any more barriers. There's plenty of barriers
Yes,
for
yes,
caregivers.
plenty of there.
We don't need to put any more. So if somebody's able to donate, wonderful. If not, it is there for them to use. We are also talking with churches about using that. So I have my cousin's husband is in a church, and he was talking about, he goes, oh my gosh, we only have like, three elderly women who are, trying to help caregive and do meal plans and like all of this stuff for the whole congregation. And I was like, okay, we need to talk. So we were able to get them on a calendar, so they were able to put what tasks that they needed help with, and send it out to their congregation, so their congregation can say, oh yeah, I can do each of those and that, and
All
really,
hands on deck.
exactly, really build out, and so it can be used in so many ways. It can be used at a work, if you wanted, somebody was having surgery coming up, and you wanted, your coworkers wanted to put together something to say, these are some of the tasks that Jane could use some help with, and then coworkers can take a look and say, oh yeah, I can do this, that, or nothing at all, which
Yeah,
is fine too.
yeah. So tell me, let's talk about you, Niki. What do you do to take care of yourself? What's like your go-to? I'm gonna recover from all the caring and thinking about other people.
So one of the great things that I do meditation. That is the big thing that helps me when leaving a situation, a home where somebody is, passing, or there's a lot that goes on, at end of life, a lot of raw emotion, a lot of back and forth, that can happen. And so what I try to do is make sure that I'm separating that work life from my home life. So when I am driving to a client's house, I like to turn on an audiobook, just any random fun audiobook. It gets my headspace into out of my home life, my kids needing this, that, and the other. And once I'm in there and I show up to my client's house, I turn that off. I get there about 5-10 minutes early, and then I meditate on what, that the things that I make sure that I'm doing is that I am going in without expectations, because
Mm-hmm.
you just never know
Mm-hmm.
where your client is, where everybody is, what is happening, what's happened in the last 12 hours. You just never know. And to make sure that I'm in a headspace that I can go to wherever they are and hold space for them. So if I go in and there's a lot of anger, I can hold space for that. Let's get angry together. Let's figure, maybe if we need to figure something out, maybe we don't. Maybe we just need to be angry. That's
Yep.
okay too.
Yep.
That's that emotion, I think, gets looked at badly sometimes, and if we don't express that anger, I guess we need to express it in healthy ways. But if we don't express that anger, it doesn't go away. It stays. Maybe we're sad. Let's get sad together. Maybe we're telling some morbid jokes, and we need to laugh together. Let's do that. So really going in without expectations, holding space for where we are, and just kind of seeing where that family is, where that person is, and kind of letting them lead. I do
Yeah.
not lead. I surrender.
Yeah.
And then when I do leave that house or that facility or wherever, I do the same thing. I do it just backwards. I meditate again.
Mm-hmm.
I give myself the time to let that go. I thank, the universe for allowing me to be there and allowing me to say the things that somehow came out of my mouth that they needed to hear, because it didn't come from me. You know, and really let that stay there. And then I get into my book again, and I go into whatever fantasy land that is, and I go home, and then I'm prepared and ready to get back into the craziness of having
Yeah.
3 kids at home. And whether that's making dinner or whatever.
I'm going to copy this.
Outline of someone being cognizant of what they need that I have ever heard.
And carving out the time for it. I
Yes,
love
I'm going to
that.
steal that. That is
Same.
absolutely.
the best system I've heard. And I think for females, especially, moving from the home role to the professional role and whatever, integrating that process is amazing.
Right, because we're like on autopilot all the time.
Right.
It's like there's no break.
And
Yeah.
when you allow yourself to be cognizant of your patterns, and you kind of pull yourself kind of out of those patterns, you're like, why am I so stressed out? Why am I, like, and really looking in, like, what is causing me to be stressed out? I'm not giving, I'm not feeling like I can give professionally, because I'm still so focused on what's going on at home, or I can't focus on home because so what can I do? And also, not just turn on music that, like, or the news or whatever as I'm going, and letting it just kind of, my brain just, like, really be cognizant that I am leaving the situation at the door. And sometimes I physically do that. I will take kind of do this and, like, leave it at the door, and then be on my way and give myself that time. Yeah. So just
I
just
think
being aware.
the intentional separation is something I have never heard, but I think that is amazing. I also love a good morbid joke. If you ever think of
Love
one you'd like to share,
I was
there's
gonna say in my
there's a
ring of
dark
carrying, you're
aspect
in
to my
charge of
humor
those.
that I'm like, ooh, should this be public? But I do think it should be public
It
because
should,
sometimes it's
yes.
just so funny. Um,
Yes. And we
it's
and we need to normalize
yes,
this stuff, for
yeah.
sure.
So,
Mhm.
how long did it take you? I mean, I really feel like you've got your mental shit together. You seem very put together. How long did it take you to get here? Because you obviously, like with your grandmother passing, you kind of found your passion or your
Calling,
yes
yeah.
calling. It is really a calling, it seems. Um, but was it a process to get to the point where you're like, okay, I can do this and I can separate these roles and I can maintain my sanity being a mom and then being so available to other people?
So this is a we could do a whole nother podcast on this,
Oh,
but
good. We'd love
to
to.
to really shape that. I know exactly when it happened. I can tell you exactly when it happened. It was during COVID. I was in Indiana, and I looked at my 4-year-old, and um, I thought about his favorite color. Just kind of came to me, and I was like, oh, and I looked, and I thought, well, I know your favorite color. And I looked over to my other kids, and I'm like, I know your favorite color, and I know your favorite color. And I looked at my husband, and I was like, I know his favorite color. What's my favorite color?
Mm.
And I I couldn't pull it up.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that it was blue, but I was like, what? But what blue? What
Yeah.
blue is my favorite
And
color?
when your kids are
And,
at that age, like every week, they're
yeah,
like,
you're
my
always
new
talking
favorite
about that.
color
Yes,
is yellow.
yes,
And they're very
exactly.
specific. Mom, do you remember my new favorite
Right.
color that I told you last Sunday?
Exactly. Exactly.
Like,
So I'm like, I
wow.
don't I don't even know mine. And so I was like, I gave myself, like, I'm going to take the next 2 weeks, and I'm just going to, when I think about it, I'm going to look at different blues and see how they make me feel, and figure out what my favorite color is, because I had realized that I at some point had kind of lost myself. And we do that. We
Mm-hmm.
do that as women, we do that as caregivers, we do that as moms. We
Yep.
lose ourselves.
Present.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so I took a journey, a 6-year journey, on finding myself again.
Nice.
Finding and so it went back to childhood. This is really literally where I started. Like, what did I like when I was little? So I would turn on, like, not like, but like, listen, I started, like, reading, like, some stories and things like that, like, one of my favorite books when I was a kid was The Giver. Like, that one, it gave me so much emotion and so much, and I was like, I need to read that again. And there were a couple of other books, and I just kind of started on this journey, into my teenage years. What did I like? The music that I liked. I started listening to that. And then I started kind of really it helped me think about in my everyday life. And when I'm reading, different books on like, coming back to yourself and becoming aware and stuff like that. And it's saying, you need to put yourself first. And I was like, no, can't do that. I'm a mom,
Yeah.
can't,
Yeah.
can't put myself first. But then something clicked and it was like, wait a minute. If I start knowing what I want, knowing what my needs are, and I am filling my bucket, aren't I going to be a better mom and a
Yeah.
better wife and a better
Yeah.
daughter? And
It's
and
that
it,
whole oxygen mask, which I
it
swear
is
if I could just come up with a better analogy, I
right,
will do it because I
right,
can't with the oxygen mask anymore. But like, we're going to find a better one. It's going to become the new
right.
tagline. You're going to need to come back and we're going to have to talk about the 6-year journey because I think that is probably a journey that a lot of people in this space would benefit from.
I
Um,
myself included. And let me get
Kristen's
this
taking
straight.
notes over there.
I'm like, oh my God. So you came to this on your own without like a therapist or ayahuasca or drugs? Like, this is
Mm,
fascinating to
Yes,
me. Like,
yes. So
because it's so true.
it is,
I
and
mean,
it
we lose
just
ourselves.
it is, and it's that looking inward is really what continued. I give credit to this. So I was an only child for 12 years, so I did a lot of being by myself, and I
yep.
hated that when I was a kid. But
Yeah.
man, it
You
has
had to get
helped me
comfortable
as an
with it.
adult.
Yeah.
Yes, so many are not comfortable looking inwards.
Yes.
Like, okay, when I get angry, what triggered that anger, and then not looking outward. Who triggered me? They did this,
Yeah,
they
looking
did
for
that.
external sources to
Right.
comfort themselves or to blame. Yeah.
Exactly. Focusing, okay, so what a part of me became triggered because of something that they did.
Hmm.
And maybe it affected me, but that doesn't mean and realizing too that I have the choice for anger or the choice for peace. And that when I choose anger, that somebody else, I'm giving that to them. They are, I'm taking that emotion that they wanted me to have, and I'm giving them, like, all right, I'll be angry for you. I don't want to do that. One of my favorite things, and now like that I like to look at, is when somebody else just kind of plops their baggage in your lap, whatever baggage that is. From maybe they flip you off coming on to the on ramp or something, who knows. Like they got that baggage, they just tried to put it in my lap, and I will literally take that baggage out of my lap and just hand it back. It's yours, it's not mine, I don't need it, I'm good,
You're having a
thanks.
bad day, not my bad
Yep,
day.
exactly. Doesn't have to turn to my bad day. And it takes time. It is not like I said, it has been a journey.
Yeah.
It has been small accomplishments and small learnings, but it has made me a better mom. I am more um, aware. I am more present. I am
Hmm.
more in every situation. I'm like, and that's what I meant with like, I make it intentional to leave my baggage at home. I make it
Yep.
intentional to bring my brain somewhere else. I make it intentional to bring myself into that client's home, to be who they need me to be and where they need me to be. um and I think that's how you know making sure that you're present and intentional is it's easy to say.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting here, I know it's hard to do.
Yes. I
It
think
is.
that it's like one of those things that for someone in your space, or for example, someone in the healthcare space, or someone that's really in a professional role that relies heavily on there's some empathy that has to be pulled when they come to work. That's very important. But I think it's really important no matter what role you're in, just to
Absolutely.
say, like, I need to separate these spaces. I think people would be so much more happy and productive if they intentionally did that. And so let's pin that. And then I'm going to spin up a whole nother conversation we could talk about elsewhere. I want to ask you 2 more questions. Um, our last question is always, what's your favorite comfort food? But before that, I want to say, like, do you have anybody in this kind of caregiving, end of life space, or even whoever it might be that's like your amazing mentor that you look to, or that, and we didn't ask you this ahead of time, so if you don't, you
No,
think
that's
on it.
fine. Yeah.
But is there anybody that comes to mind that you're like, man, this person is everything that I want to be, or you've learned a lot from them and you're just really impressed?
Yes, her name is Twyla, and she
Yeah.
is my 93, almost 94-year-old grandmother. She's the reason
Wow.
that I am
Yeah.
here, and she is my focus. So I have gone through a lot of this similar things with her. I've learned to advocate. I've learned
Mm-hmm.
that advocates and caregivers need other people to advocate for them. And I've learned to ask for that help, and I've learned to speak up and use my voice. She has taught me how to love unconditionally. She is,
And Twyla's a wonderful name
oh,
too.
and
What a
she is a
great name.
feisty, she's amazing. Um, I could tell you stories about her, but she has taught me to be in the space to find my, not find my worth, but realize my worth, and that I am
Mm-hmm.
worthy no matter what it is that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And she, one of the hard things that we had to do was, so I've got, my mom, it's and my two uncles, and we realized when I was in Indiana, I came back, she'd fallen and kind of cracked a rib. And I realized that, we have family all around here. But we did not know that she was not taking her medications correctly. We did not know that she was not eating correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these realizations of driving,
Making
medication,
time. Yeah.
yes. And so that's hard.
Yeah. Those
And
hard
realizing
conversations.
it is. And so that's another thing that we're doing, compassionate conversations, because when you are a child, it's hard to become that caregiver for a parent who's always cared for you or who hasn't cared for you. That's a whole nother thing. And so, how do you have those conversations? And so that's another thing we're doing is like, let's have these conversations early. Let's create an aging timeline. What would it look like for you, where, because at some point you're not going to be able to drive. We all know
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
When would that feel comfortable for you? What fears and worries do you have about that? And so I talked to my grandmother about that because nobody else could.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, it's getting to this point where we're scared, that something is going to happen. When would you feel comfortable? What could we put in place so that still have that freedom, that you still have that autonomy? Because that is the biggest fear right there. I don't want to lose my autonomy. Yes. And so what can we put in place so that you are able to do the things that you want to do? You're able to go to the grocery, you're able to do all of that.
Yeah. Like,
But
what are
that
your
we are
top
able,
priorities as
right,
you age? Well,
right.
we know. Yes. The
That,
sandwich generation needs this so bad.
yes,
So
yes.
that might be the second part of that upcoming episode that I'm already
Yeah.
teasing out, whether you like it or not, Niki. And so
Yeah.
if you had a really bad day, what's being cooked at your house, or where are you ordering from? What are you eating? What's your comfort food?
I'm really weird to the point where like I get on a food that just sounds good that I'm craving, and like I eat it until I don't like it ever again.
I do that with music.
Yeah, yes,
Mhm.
yeah. So right now I have been making this, and this happens like every fall, but like this
Yeah.
lemon chicken, an
Mm.
orzo soup
Oh, I
that
love
is
that.
just, oh my
Like
Yeah.
gosh.
Greek
It's,
style. Hmm.
yes, yes,
Hmm.
it's so good. It's so quick and easy and
Warm. Yeah.
comforting and warm. Yeah. Really though, I mean, if we're gonna be honest, it's chocolate, like dark chocolate, good dark
Mm.
chocolate.
Well, I'm going to wrap us up because otherwise Nico's going to kill us when he sees that we went twice as long, but I think he'll work his magic. So it's going to be wonderful.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I love you. I think you are the epitome of someone that is like in the right space.
Inspirational. Oh
Yes.
my
So
gosh.
I can't wait to talk to you
Thank you.
more. And just everyone, we'll put this in the outro. We'll put the links in the outro so everybody knows like where to go, but ringsofcare.org, and Niki will be back with us soon. Thank you. That's a wrap on this episode of Let Me Know If You Need a Podcast. Just as a reminder, we know that caregiving is one of the most profound acts of love, but it's also one of the hardest acts to sustain alone. And that's what we talked about today. Niki reminded us that when we surround our caregivers with care of their own, everyone's quality of life improves. So that's the patient, the family, and the community. To learn more about how you can build a ring of care, visit ringsofcarekc.org. That's ringsofcarekc.org. And we would love to see you and hear more about how you're showing up better for each other. Please visit lmkpod.com or find us on the socials at Let Me Know If You Need a Podcast, wherever you listen. Because support isn't just about a casserole at the door, it's the ongoing care that reminds us we're not alone.